At 7 o'clock. Call the meeting order, please. Raise your prayer, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Chavez. Hightower.
Here.
Jackson.
Here.
Mason. Here. Laura. O'Connell. Here. Sosa.
Here. We have any public participation, written or oral? Any new business? New business. Laura, we have some, you?
We do. We have Jeremy Rolling and Tom Leonard from Gilbane here to present information on the change orders to be presented tonight for approval and some updates on the construction projects.
Great.
Good evening. Joe, if I can have you pull up the explanation of change orders to start with.
Share my screen.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's not me presenting. Sorry, I didn't get the second. Sorry, I had that this computer and that computer. Give me just a second. I'm going to make that work.
While Mr. Burns is working that out, I just wanted to share with the board that Jeremy, Mr. Rowling, myself, and Mr. White met with principals of both Riley and Northlake to begin the process of preparing for the construction to begin at Riley Northlake around the time of spring break for this coming school year. And we'll talk more about that as a team, but I just wanted to mention to the board that we're looking not only at the construction part of it, but also the impacts on our curriculum to make sure that we prepare for continuing to meet the needs of our learners, even though we'll be occupying some spaces for construction at that time. So we're all set.
All right. So this sheet here is my executive summary, my monthly report that was distributed in your board packet. So basically, construction's going very well. There's a lot of statistics and some milestones that we've met here. We finished up the phase one site demolition work. We finished up the site one utility work with the big storm detention system installed back behind the existing Sunnyside Park there. And then we've completed foundation excavation, and we're very near to complete with the concrete foundations. So I'm not going to go into detail on this. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. And then also we do have this month a drone video again, an update of the overall site. So Joe, if you want to show that, we can start with that, and then again, if there's any questions on the progress or where we're headed, please feel free to ask. So this was taken on September 15th, so a week and a half ago. So you can see pretty much the foundations are done, and they're quite a bit further at this point. We're about a week away from finishing foundations, week and a half. The concrete will be there. So there you're seeing the gymnasium, the outlines of the gymnasiums. On the south end of the site, we've started the masonry for the two stairwells. One stairwell is topped out completely. The other stairwell will top out probably in the next 2 days. We've started the masonry work for the Sunnyside Gymnasium. You can also see that going vertical, and a lot of preps that are just readying the site for the next phases. The next big things coming are the start of steel erection. The end of October, we're on target for October 29th to start that. We'll start at the south end of the building and work our way north. That'll be ongoing for about 2.5 months. But then November 1st, we're on track for the start of precast erection for this MacArthur Gymnasium. That will start on November 1st. It'll take about 6 days to put the whole gymnasium up. Then we'll have a bunch of detailing work, and then we'll do masonry and steel around that, kind of build around that structure. So those are some big things coming up here in the next month. Really big highlights. It'll be very exciting to see and watch the progress there. So another big thing that happened this month, we did turn back the parking lot in the playground area behind Sunnyside and MacArthur, so that today actually was the first day drop off and pick up. Leave behind the school again and back out under St. Charles as they previously did. So the coordination on that, communication has been working very well. Our site logistics is working fine, and I think the district's logistics is working as well, so it's been good on that note as well. So that's kind of my progress update. Does anyone have any questions about the progress or where we're headed?
Jeremy, are you having any supply issues? That does get any question.
So currently, no.
Good.
I mean, it's a different world in the materials market right now. We are tracking, things much more precisely than we previously would have. We typically look for things that are, 3 to 4 week lead times and beyond. We're now looking a lot harder at things that are even 2 weeks out. Things, basic materials that should be basic supplies, electrical boxes, conduits, PVC pipe. Things like that we should be able to call an order today and have tomorrow or the next day. We've really got to dive into that a lot more. So we are paying very close attention to that. There was a little bit of hesitancy with steel, getting some certain shapes and certain sizes out of the mills. It looks like that has been rectified for our project, so we feel good about where we're at going with that. Precast, there's no issue, but certainly looking down the line, we're hearing, there's been a lot of horror stories with roofing materials. We've heard stories where they're rationing or, only allowing contractors to purchase so much drywall at one time per month. So it's kind of an evolving situation. We do ask the contractors on a monthly basis for status on materials and the projected lead times. And we're pushing heavily to get, submittals in and approved, materials approved so that they can place those orders and either store them in their warehouse or at least, have that allocation there when they need it, it's a phone call away. So we are paying close attention to that. Right now, I would not say we have any concerns, but, that could change tomorrow, unfortunately. But we're tracking it the best we can.
Okay, now you said the project is on target.
Yes.
Okay, we're going into some cold spell in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
So are we anticipating any slowdown during that cold spell, or we're going to try to work through it?
No, we'll work through it. We've got a pretty robust plan on how we're going to work through it. We've always anticipated it this way, and it was bought from the bidders, doing the structure and the concrete and all that through the winter. So we've got provisions accounted for in most of the contracts. We've got some other stuff in our general requirements budget for things like temporary heat, temporary closure, stuff like that. But I don't anticipate any slowdown due to winter. And we'll cruise right through it and actually pick up the pace as steel, once steel goes, it's gonna be really busy on site. So we right now probably have 30 workers per day. And when we peak on this job, I would say, next summer, probably going into early next fall, we'll be somewhere around 150 every day. So, but, yeah.
Because what our plan is still open up to demolition in December 2022, right?
Yes, sir, yes. Occupying the new building and demolishing the existing one, and then landscaping and parking.
We're getting that work all off right now.
Well, we like the progress. Thank you. Any other questions from the board?
I have it.
Well, Mr. Chavez is not here. He did send me an email, said he went over there, specs, and he's satisfied with things are going. So apparently we made our go-to person happy. So whatever you're doing, keep it going, okay?
All right, very good. So Joe, if I can have you flip to the one that's titled September 21. That's on there. Thank you. I do have 5 change orders for presentation and your approval later on in the meeting. So I'm just going to give you a brief update again, just like last month. If you guys have questions on them, feel free to ask. I believe you received the narrative on the synopsis of what each change order included. Again, we followed through with that district change order numbering. So last month you approved 1 through 4. Now we're at 5 through 9. The change order 5 was proposal request number 2, which dealt with a conflict between the storm sewer pipe and the sanitary sewer pipe on the west side of the site. As the sanitary needed to cross over the storm and enter into the building, there's a conflict in elevation. The resolution to that put forward by Erection Engineering and approved by the MWRD, the Metropolitan Water and Reclamation District. The resolution to that was setting another concrete structure so that the pipe can pass through going in one direction and the storm water can free flow through that structure to eliminate the concrete. So like I said, this has been approved. We have not completed the work yet. We do need to get it completed before winter. And so the ask here is an approval for $10,848. Got to re-excavate that area, set the structure, and cut some pipe apart, and then put it back together. So,
That's not for approval, not at all.
It is, the change orders will be on the agenda for the regular meeting.
Change order number 6 goes along with PR 4. And this is a couple of different things here. There's some electrical circuiting and connections, the data closet, cleaning up a couple items in there. And then the biggest portion of the cost was adding fiber and copper backbones to link the 2 IT equipment rooms together. Basically, the thought is we have separate fiber lines coming into each building or each side of the school. The thought was by putting this backbone and linking the 2 together, if something should happen to the feed for, let's say, Sunnyside, we'd be able to backfeed through the MacArthur side into the Sunnyside by having the redundancy. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, I know you were involved in that conversation. But so there was quite a bit of added cost with this since at the time we were putting together the documents for the meeting tonight. We got some information that we could eliminate the copper portion of that. So there is going to be a reduction, a pretty significant reduction to this cost. And so you'll notice we're requesting a not to exceed price, so the $21,739. What I'd like to do is ask your approval on that tonight at the second half of the meeting. And then next month, we'll come back to you with that reduced cost. We're gonna work through taking that copper portion out, and we'll provide you with the updated costs and reflect that in the contingency expenditure.
What would be your estimation of that reduction?
Ballpark, probably around $8,000. So, a pretty good chunk. It may even be more than that. I've got to look at the details of it and how much of the labor goes away that was attributed to the ad initially. So. All right, so that's change order 6. Change order 7 goes along with PR 6. And this is to incorporate automatic door operators at 7 of the entry doors. And then also, because we had some phased bidding and some rebid with the ceramic tile and some of the finishes, there were bidder questions asked and answered during the rebid phase that we then needed to turn around and incorporate it into the painting and the drywall scope of work. So it's just leveling those scopes of work out, making sure that we've got everything covered. And so in total, with the operators and the couple of little finish changes, this one is an add of $25,086. All right. Change order 8 then goes along with PR 7. So this one is a contractor's suggestion to revise a detail in relation to the storm sewer system. And so they're called finger drains. We revised the detail, thereby it made their work easier, and so there was a credit associated with that. There was less material, and there was also less labor. So we got a credit for that portion. Second half of this was, there was a standard detail, I'll say, that referenced a future irrigation line outside the building. So there were some provisions in the plumbing system for it. It never was to my knowledge, it was not a conversation with the district or a request of the district to have an irrigation line in place for the future. So we were able to eliminate some work there, some material backflow, better, a water meter, stuff like that, by eliminating that prep work for them. So this one, those two items netted an $8,191 credit. And then the last one I have for you is change order 9, which again goes along with PR number 8. And this is a coordination issue or item as we started working through our 3D coordination BIM modeling with the ductwork and the piping and working through clashes in a virtual world before we actually build it in the real world. It came about that the precast opening with a storm-rated louver in it did not work with the way that the ductwork was detailed currently. So we revised the ductwork. There was a large fire damper. This opening is 5 foot tall and 12 foot wide with ductwork passing through it. And because it's a storm shelter, it has to have a storm-rated louver in it, capable of withstanding an ICC 500 rating. But it also is a building separation, and so it has to have a fire damper on each side of the wall because it's a double wall. So a fire damper that large is very expensive. They don't actually make them that big, so it has to be brought out in pieces and assembled on site. So there's quite a bit of labor with that. So this one resulted in an add of $14,529. All right. So if you could flip to the middle tab there. Thank you. So the summary of where all those items that I just talked about, where we stand, if all of this was to be approved tonight. So the items in blue, highlighted in blue, are things that we're asking for your approval on during the board meeting. Items in yellow, again, are things that we're working on. Estimated costs are in there. You'll see that there's a credit anticipated on one of them and an add on the other, so it's kind of washing out. But those are things that we'll have for your approval next month. And then at the very bottom, you can see the summary. Again, all the items in gray are ones that you either approved last month. You'll see the approved column or approved note in the second column to the end. or that they didn't have a cost and didn't need your input and approval on those. So the total request for tonight is $64,011, added, taken out of the contingency of that 3.4 million, leaving us, with almost 99% of the contingency, 98.5%. So I think we're in good shape. This is a lot of stuff that's coming up during coordination, during the submittal process, but this is the time we want these things to come out. We want to flush through those things so that it doesn't hold us up when we're actually loading in the field. So, any questions on the change orders for me?
No questions from you?
I have no questions.
No questions.
Mr. Sosa? No questions? Mr. Brown?
Okay.
No questions. Ms. Vance, are you watching the contingency?
We are, and we meet weekly for construction update. Dr. Sullivan, Mr. White, myself, the whole team, and the Gilbane team. And during that time, that meeting, they give us updates on where they are with all of these requests, submittals from the trades. And then we met separately when they developed the change orders for tonight, when those 5 came up complete. And we reviewed that and talked through all of the process on where it stemmed from, how they developed the resolution, and then what the outcome is. So yes, we've been made aware of each one of these items.
Well, thank you. The 99.5 is a pretty good plan so far. Does a lot of draining these resources. So thanks for doing that. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the board? Next, Ms. Vance.
Thank you very much. Jessalyn Kelly from Gold Team, do you have any updates for us, or did Jeremy cover everything?
That largely covers the project happening behind us. But just a quick update on Jefferson. The house is completely demoed, and then the concrete slab for the storm trap, the underground storm system, was poured today, I believe. And then the underground storm system is being delivered next week. So we're really rocking and rolling on that one.
Just, I went to work one day. I came home the afternoon in the house was done. So what happened? I heard it, I heard it, you guys just check it out.
They made quick work of it. You should have had a camera position so you could see it.
Really? Good job. Anything else? From Jefferson?
Nope, that's all I have there.
Any questions from the board?
No questions.
All right, good. Is there anything else from the construction?
I do not have anything else. I think they covered everything.
Can I get a motion to adjourn? Ms. Mason, Mr. Jackson. Roll call.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you. We're going to go right into our regular board meeting. I am showing 7:24. Okay, roll call please.
Chavez. Hightower.
Here.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Here.
Mora. O'Connell.
Here.
Sosa.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Mason, here.
That is me, yes. So information was provided in your packet on the proposed budget for the fiscal year 2022, as well as the prior year budget that was presented last September. And I used the prior year from September instead of the amended budget in June because it was a closer comparison. As you recall, we amended the budget last year in June because we did not have full in-person learning the entire year. And there were a lot of things that we did not do last year, so the amended budget adjusted that. So for a summary, the budget for fiscal year 2022 represents estimates of revenues and expenditures for Berkeley School District 87. The revenues, approximately 54% of all revenue received by the district comes from local money. Most of the local money comes from property taxes. Other local money comes from cafeteria receipts, tuition, and student fees. Interest earnings showed some improvement last year. Even though the township projection is for interest earnings to drop, we are holding ours flat based on increased funds available for investment due to bond sales. About 32% of the district's revenue comes from the state of Illinois. The largest source is the evidence-based funding, which generates about $15.7 million. And in FY22, that allotment, in addition to that allotment, includes tier funds, which this year we will get roughly $300,000 in tier funds, which last year they held flat at the base of 15.7. Transportation is another funding source that's provided by the state. We do not have the funding levels yet, so an estimate based on our claim is included in the budget that you will be being presented with tonight. The third source of revenue comes from federal grants and reimbursements, such as Title I and the Child Nutrition Program. This year's budget includes the ESSER II grant fund, which is approximately $2.5 million. This year, the federal source money accounts for roughly 13% of total revenue. Federal funds can only be spent on specific programs. We will continue to monitor all funds closely throughout the school year, and as we approach the end of the fiscal year, if any fund needs additional revenue, we would transfer evidence-based funding monies from the ed fund to the funds most in need. It's too early in the fiscal year to determine which fund may have needs at the end of the year, but we'll monitor that and keep you abreast of that. Expenditures are divided into four major categories. Salary and benefits account for approximately 33%, which that seems a little bit lower than our normal percentage. But I think this year with the construction and maybe next year as well, the amount of construction that we're expending skews the percentages because our capital outlay is very high with construction going on. There are over 350 regular employees working for District 87, plus daily substitutes who work on an as-needed basis. Contracted services is the second category, and much of that is maintenance agreements for equipment, waste disposal services, audit preparation, and student transportation expenses, which combined total just over 16.4% of our expenditures. Some of our service agreements increased by CPI, which helps us to control the annual increases. Supplies are roughly 4% of our budget. Capital outlay with the construction is a little over 38%, plus other expenses account for the balance of the total budgeted expenditures. Included in this category are the purchase of textbooks, computers, milk, contest fees, floor wax, building improvement projects, purchases of natural gas and electricity, and this year includes construction costs for the district capital improvement plan projects, as well as the additional services and supports provided through the ESSER II grant. Approximately 6% of the budget will pay for tuition or other educational agencies for special needs children. The largest expenditure in the transportation fund is the bus contract, which typically increases by the consumer price index. This year is the second year of our 2-year extension contract with Westway, and the contract increase is a flat increase this year. We continue to monitor bus routes and will increase or decrease as necessary. The Illinois Municipal Retirement Fund should receive enough operating money through the district's levy, and we're intentionally spending down some fund balance for IRF expenditures and levied for Social Security and Medicare. The operations and maintenance fund includes expenditures to address higher insurance costs, any building repairs, increased bandwidth, and we've also included a transfer of $400,000 of evidence-based funding in the operation and maintenance funds revenue this year. The tentative budget for fiscal year 2022 has been on display since August 5th, when the public notice for tonight's meeting was published in the local newspapers as required. The Board of Education will have the opportunity to approve the budget for fiscal year 22 later this evening. Once approved, the budget will be filed with the county clerk's office. The State Board of Education is directed by state law. And a copy will also be provided to the township school treasurer's office. As a reminder, please remember to state this is one form that requires all board members to sign in approval, or to sign indicating your vote, your action on this, on approving, adopting the budget. I've included charts which reflect the revenue and expenditures by source for your reference, and these represent the major categories that I discussed for the 22 budget. Changes that could happen, transportation, our preliminary prorations, and are subject to change. Final prorations are due in December from the state board. The tax levy is estimated because we still have unknowns such as CPI, the multiplier, and the EAV. That is the end of the information for the public hearing. Are there any questions?
No questions?
No questions. No questions.
No questions.
Then we can close the public hearing.
Okay, so the motion to close, Ms. Jackson and Ms. Mason. Roll call please.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell. Sosa.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Moving right along. Any further participation?
We have a written participation, so we ask that the board accept the written correspondence as presented.
I'll move.
Ms. O'Connell?
A second.
Ms. Mason. Roll call please.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell. Sosa.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Motion carried.
That's it. Consideration of the whole business. 2 minutes. Okay, Ms. Mason. Ms. O'Connell. Roll call.
Mason. O'Connell. Sosa.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Motion carried.
So the board is good.
No new business.
Yes, the Board of Education approved the accounts and claims payable authorization as presented.
I'll move.
A second.
Roll call.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
O'Connell. Sosa.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And there were no questions this month. And then the monthly building rental report is included in your packet for your review, and this is informational purposes only. Thank you. That's it.
Yes.
No, that's it. We're ready to go into executive session.
All right, so no open this, we'll go into closed session then.
Ms. Travis.
Ms. Travis?
No, it's.
Recognize. Sorry, Ms. Travis.
I'm sorry, I thought I heard you, Mr. Chairman.
No problem.
We are not going to recognize. Can also go into closed session. Yes. Roll call.
O'Connell. Sosa.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. Motion carried.
We're going into closed session, last session.
And, we say,
Reports from the board. Ms. O'Connell?
Okay, we had a case meeting on the 15th of September. We did our public hearing regarding the fiscal year 22 case budget. There were no comments, and then we did the rest of the business. And then we also had a special governing board meeting on September 20th to approve the fiscal year 22 case budget as presented. So.
Okay.
That's it.
And Peggy, you
Our
always
next
took
meeting
it
is
down.
Wednesday, October 20th. That's, yeah.
All right, thank you. Ms. Macy, you have a report?
No report.
No report? Mr. Chavez didn't have any. We had, of course, we had a facility meeting before this meeting, so all the minutes were part of the board package come out, okay? Alex? No? Bit more? You had no reports, right? Okay, so we're gonna close that one out. Superintendent?
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. First, we have a resignation. Suggested motion is the board accept the resignation of the following personnel. Mary Ann Fleming, Northlake, cross-categorical teacher, effective September 3rd, 2021.
Have a motion? Ms. O'Connell and Ms. Mason. Roll call?
Sosa.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We suggest that the board approve the license leave of absence request as presented for Kristen Zell, Sarah Koenig, Diane Kuchke, Vakisha Moore, Caitlin Boley, and Fotini Sakaris.
Have a motion? Ms. Mason? Ms. Alex? Roll call, please.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the board employ the following personnel effective September 23rd, 2021. Catherine Swanson, MacArthur music teacher, lane 1, step 1.
A motion? Ms. Mason? Ms. O'Connell? Roll call?
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason. O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the board accept the resignation of Cosette Espinoza Pizarro, Northlake administrative assistant, effective 9/15/21.
Ms. Mason and Ms. O'Connell. Roll call, please.
Mason. O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We ask that the board employ the following educational support staff personnel. Vanessa Chavez, Northlake, clerical aide, effective September 29th, 2021. Natalie Cruz, district administrative assistant, effective October 1st, 2021. Wilbert Lee MacArthur, teacher aide, effective September 17th, 2021. Kiara McGee, Sunnyside, teacher aide, effective September 20th, 2021. And Yesenia Villalobos Diaz, Northlake administrative assistant, effective September 27th, 2021. And thank you, Mrs. Travis, for all your work on this.
Ms. Travis, you've been busy. Get a motion? Ms. Mason and Alex. Roll call, please.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Motion carried.
You'll also see in your packet the administrator and staff compensation reports. We ask that the board accept these reports as presented.
Okay. Ms. O'Connell and Ms. Alex. Roll call, please.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Motion carried.
We have a contract from Thunder Soccer. We ask that the board ratify the lease agreement between School District 87 and Thunder Soccer from September 7th, 2021 until October 21st, 2021 is presented.
Have a motion? Ms. O'Connell, Ms. Mason. Roll call, please.
Sosa.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Also in your packet, you have the Board of Education and Berkeley Education Association Memorandum of Understanding. We ask that the Board of Education approve the Memorandum of Understanding with the Berkeley Education Association for extra duty salary schedule as presented.
Have a motion? Ms. Mason, Ms. O'Connell. Roll call, please.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson. Mason. O'Connell. Sosa.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And then just a few items in my oral report. Mr. Byrne, could you give us an update? And then Mr. White, how things are going in technology and in facilities?
So just a few things that are happening. So right now at Northlake and at Sunnyside School, we're piloting the technology that will be implemented at our new buildings. At least we're getting feedback and we'll make some tweaks based on their feedback. So that includes a big 8.6-inch interactive display. There's a balance box so you could raise it up and down. There's ceiling mounted speakers in a voice lift system so the teachers can walk around the room and their voice is emitted through those ceiling mounted speakers. It also helps out with some remote learning audio and also a rolling desk with a document camera. So kind of the theme of the classroom is engagement and wireless, so the teachers don't have to be bound by cables, but they're still able to use the technology in their classrooms. So 2 classrooms, again, that we're modeling and piloting to ultimately be implemented in our 4 schools, 2 new schools and our renovated schools. With the referendum, network, robust and high uptime. So we're designing a network, as was kind of talked about by Jeremy earlier, for high uptime, right? Each year, there's more and more of a dependence on our network. So wireless coverage for our whole building, not only the classroom, but hallways, and on the exterior as well. This has always been a good thing, but now with COVID and using outdoor spaces, now our network expands past our walls, so students could get internet access when they're outside. And we actually took advantage of that a few weeks ago with the meeting that we held outside. E-rate, so E-rate season is coming up. We are planning for all the network hardware for our 2 new buildings and our renovations at Riley and Northlake. We want to be almost completely funded by the E-rate program that we take advantage of each year, but close to $500,000 we hope to receive from Category 2 funding to pay for all of the network gear for our 4 new buildings. So we are starting that work. Ms. Vince will be working or communicating something with T-Mobile. I'm assuming later in her report, we're working on getting a grant through the federal government for this year to get 300 hotspots for our students that we're working on signing a contract tonight for. And then finally, some things from this school year, as I mentioned, the access points we installed over the summer, outdoor, so all of our schools could take advantage of some outdoor internet access. Our teachers have 2 devices this year, so they could not only teach our in-person students, but when they have to do remote learning, they could use a separate device to try to navigate both of those instructional modalities. We are servicing PACE staff this year. We have about just over 30 PACE staff that used to be serviced by the PACE technology department. We are taking that over this year to try to get them more included in our staff and the systems that we use here. And this is, which is kind of interesting to say, our first year of one-to-one kindergarten through 8th grade, where all of our students are on site. So all of our students have Chromebooks, and they have them available for use throughout the school day, and many of our older grades are taking those home each day as well. So just a few updates.
Mr. Burns, you have done a good job in your department as far as technology.
Thank you.
With the new buildings going up, are you going to see any hidden costs that we're going to have to be associated with those new buildings?
Great question, and yes. Now, the new buildings is a little bit of a catalyst for that, but that is coming anyways. So there's more network reliance, if you will. So that means more data drops. Why? Because access points that go, we have probably 100 access points in each of our 4 new buildings, I'm calling it, New MacArthur, Sunnyside, renovated Riley, Northlake. Those access points don't require 1 cable, they now require 2 cables. Why? More throughput. Internet's getting faster, there's more demands for it. So that means when there's more cables, there's more switches. When there's more switches, there's more management costs. There's hardware is a little bit more expensive. We're building in more failover to have a higher uptime. So maybe 5 or 10 years ago, if the network went down, not a big deal. But now, when every adult has not only one but multiple devices, all of our students have devices, we can't let the network go down. So that means multiple UP. So there's just a lot of things that we're not relying on the network less, we're relying on it more. And these new buildings are built for that. We're designing it for that.
Ms. Vince, I know we got a construction project group going on. Internet costs associated with the project, or there be costs that we're gonna have to absorb in our budget?
So there's technology that is outside of the construction budget that Mr. Schuster put into the one. Some of it is in the overall budget, and he has allocated a certain amount that's included. And in this, before the school year ended, where we were looking at different options, and we, Mr. Byrne, and after he had met with the whole team, presented different options. We selected the options to maintain that budget. So we are working together, and there are some things that we will seek out grants as possible. As Mr. Byrne mentioned, we are looking at E-rate to fund some of the switches and the switches and
Access points,
Access
UPSs, controllers, there's a lot.
yes. And so if we can use the category 2 and get that funding to pay for those things to be installed, it reduces the district contribution.
Well, we're really glad you guys are talking. That's gonna be key. Anytime you build a new building, there can always be some hidden costs. And we need to be on top of that, because these buildings, when we put these buildings out to the community, we will be hit the ground running, right? Hit the ground running, that's what we want. All right, so stay on top of that.
Yeah, well, and you just bring up such a great point, because we did have to be mindful of that. It was all the latest and the greatest. Well, what's the long-term cost of that? So it's combining available budget, what our teachers and students need, but it's also financially responsible and sustainable over the long term. So it was, all of those things were taken into consideration with designing classroom technology and the network infrastructure.
Thank you. Thanks for updating.
Thank you. Mr. White, the updated facility?
Gil Bain and Wool gave you most of the updates on the construction part, but another thing I wanted to add with the, in the technology section is that we are also talking about designing future-proofing it and installing the cabling or the raceways right now will be empty, but while they're building the walls and they're building the buildings, we're laying the tumbles. So if we need to upgrade in the future, 10, 20 years, the infrastructure is there, so all they gotta do is run a wire through it. So we don't know what that technology will be 20 years from now, but the raceways and the infrastructure behind the wall is there to run anything that we may need to run in the future. So that's just the end of the technology part. One of the things that I want to talk and bring to the board's attention is really the difficulty that we have with the busing situation. It is a universal problem with the lack of drivers. Our current bus company, Westway, is managing all the routes, but sometimes they have to double up. So one driver will have to run a route, turn around, drop off, go back and pick up another route. They are working the best that they can, trying to hire, with the hiring difficulties that are out there. But I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that that's one of the difficulties that we're dealing with. The buses are still running, but we have a lot of late times, late arrival times, or late drop-off times that we're dealing with.
Later routing to the schools?
Sorry?
Buses later routing to the schools?
Yeah, we're getting all the kids here, but they might have to wait for one route to complete before the driver goes back on the second route.
They stage down by us, right, on 20.
Yes.
They stage there, so I see them every morning, so yeah, they're trying. And we definitely understand we got a bus shortage, and driver shortage, so stay on top of that one. Now, what other safety concerns are you seeing with all this construction going on? What are you seeing as far as that you can report to the board that we need to be aware of for safety for our children?
I haven't seen any safety issues.
Okay.
What the latest safety issues we've worked on is future safety that might be safety issues. So the latest topic was our walkway along the fence line. They put up the fence, but they're projecting when they start building the wall along the fence here, anything falling, any type of debris falling might fall outside the fence line, so we're making adjustments to that. It really doesn't affect us too much now because we moved the pickup behind Sunnyside, but it's just items like that that they're trying to predict ahead of time. I haven't seen any safety issues that have not been addressed or anything that they have forgotten. It's been pretty good.
Good. Well, we got all 6 of our buildings got some kind of construction going on. So let's always put safety up front to make sure our children and our staff is being protected. Okay.
Okay, then just a couple other things real quick. Thanks, Mr. White. With our COVID mitigation and updates, so one of the things we're going to explore is the Shield Illinois program. I brought it up last year. We didn't go in their route because at that time, Binax now was supposed to be able to help us with what they call test to stay. So the Shield Illinois is the PCR test. So I wrote it into a grant, and as Mrs. Vince had mentioned earlier, it hasn't been kicked back, so that's good. The grant would pay for it. But basically what that would be is a vendor would come on site, and I plan to have a contract for us to review in October or November. We participated in a webinar today, but the idea would be a third-party provider would run this in our schools, which would be the saliva sampling, which then would give a positive or negative PCR test, which is thought to be more accurate than the Binax now. That if we are able to do that, it would be my recommendation, which would be parents would have the option of choosing to have their child have that test or not. And what I'm hearing is approximately 30% of students who a district offers this to are participating in that program. But that should give us even more data on what the positivity rate is in our schools. So for example, I was talking to a nearby colleague today. They've done a little over 1,000 tests this year, and they had 1 positive test. So, but we kind of know that already, that our mitigation is working, but this would be trying to think what else can we do. So if we have that going, if you have a kid who is, let's say, asymptomatic, but they've been exposed to something, we could provide that PCR test right here in the school, where they wouldn't necessarily have to go to Walgreens. But they, of course, can do that now. So there's a lot of requirements with test to stay, but it's just another option we can explore. And so we thought we might be able to do that. And I'll talk to Michael James too from PACE to see if we can even help with that. Because we want, the idea is to try to keep our kids in school to the greatest extent that we can. So I wanted to mention that. So more to follow. Also, I mentioned, or I may have mentioned that we are exploring not only the additional vaccine clinics, but also booster clinics. So what I mean by that is we may have the vaccine available for the younger students, so we would plan to have that here on site like we've been doing, but also have booster clinics here on site. Anything we can do to bang that drum of vaccination to help us get through this pandemic and keep the kids in school. I've met with each of the district administrators that I directly supervise, as well as all of the principals. And I have for everyone, one of the goals is our staff retention, not only during the pandemic, but beyond, thinking long-term. What are things we can do to get and keep the people that we need to have in our district long-term? And then student readiness to learn, that's just an ongoing priority for us because we are coming back. Originally, we thought we were coming back from, but we really still are in a pandemic. And so we're going to continue to help the children becoming ready for that. I've talked to the principals about, in some instances, pausing our after-school clubs right now because we're having trouble with buses. That's one reason. Another is until we get all of our mitigations completely under control, because we want to be careful with these out, if we have an outbreak and having different kids intermingling. So we're still kind of working that out. I'm actually working with the middle school principals tomorrow to see how we can move forward with some clubs, but maybe fewer ones to begin with until we can get everything, that we have procedures in place to mitigate any concerns with COVID. I want everyone to know that in November, it is School Board Appreciation Month, but in District 87, every day is School Board Appreciation Day. I want you to know that. So next month, we're going to have, in November, excuse me, we're going to have our dinner. We're going to have our dinner again here. So if you please would consider joining us in November before the board meeting, 6:15, that time. And each of you are being adopted either by us or by a school to show you some appreciation. And thank you, what you do every day. I know it's without pay. I know it's elected, but I also just want you to know on behalf of everybody here, we really appreciate you. Because without you, we wouldn't have the community support. We wouldn't have these wonderful facilities that are on the way. As you said, Mr. Hightower, very few school districts have new facilities. It's very, very special, and we're very appreciative of what you're doing. So that's it, Madam Clerk.
Thank you for the report. And you don't have to feel bad, we'll make sure you're adopted. Even if I have to adopt you.
Looking at you once a month, it's enough paper.
I will make sure you're adopted.
And I hope that gets recorded once a month.
All right. Thank you, my brother. Zimmerman?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. So I first want to start with just giving an updated report on our summer learning programs. So we had 2 programs this summer, but first program was in June. As you know, we had about 217 students who were enrolled in our program, but we had approximately 198 students who came on a consistent basis. Well, we did something a little different this year. Our teaching staff developed something called passion projects. So they looked at what are they passionate about that they could share with our students. And so they wrote proposals to Dr. Sullivan and I about something that they would like to teach our children. That's something that they don't normally teach, might be something completely different than they teach every day during the school year. And how they could take that project and embed math, English language arts, and social emotional learning into that project. So we had woodworking happening. They were building these incredible woodworking projects using saws. I know when we did, I ordered a bandsaw. I thought Mrs. Vince was like, oh my gosh, what are we ordering bandsaws for in the middle school? But it was a fantastic project. We had events happening, veterinarians. We had students and teachers creating projects in the way that they can give back to the earth and give back to our community. They were doing all kinds of exploring. So the premise was really to engage our students in really authentic conversation and discussion, hands-on experiences that they could have throughout the day, really just get them back on site, get them excited about learning and building their own student agency, so having control over what they wanted to learn, so they get to choose what project or what passion they could participate in. And it really went really, really well. I know we talked a little bit about it over the summer, but I wanted to make sure I included it in our official report. So we gave them an assessment, really looking at how did they build agency or ownership over their learning. We really focused on oral communication and written communication. And our social work team did an amazing job incorporating social emotional learning opportunities throughout the day. I included at the end, we also had different parent opportunities for them to come in for orientation. We did some presentation on how our parents would help build that student agency at home. We concluded the summer program with a showcase, and I included some video that the primary students and teachers created, as well as photos for you all in the report. So you can take a look at that in case you're wanting to come to our showcase. The second part, which is something that was also kind of new this year. In August, we did a return to learn program, which is why my report's kind of late, because I don't do the second half of it. For our incoming kindergarten families, we invited them to come in to the schools to kind of get
a opportunity to see what would this kindergarten experience look like before they came to schools. They had an opportunity to meet with our teachers, to know what would incoming kindergartens, to get a high level overview of what technology they might be interacting with, and using their devices. Each of our families were engaged in an opportunity to have a social emotional learning information session. You know, there's a lot of transitions in coming into kindergarten and separation from their families. And so we wanted to give our kindergarten incoming students as well as our families an opportunity to meet our staff, have a tour around the school, just get that transition with the environment and get used to our schools before they came on the first day. I think that went really, really well. We'd like to continue that moving forward next year as well. So thank you. That is part of my report. I'll move on to any questions about the summer learning programs that we offer.
Any questions? Report.
On my oral report, wanted to give you kind of an update for our literacy task force. We're continuing to review materials for literacy adoption. We have one publisher that we really seem to really like at the K-5 level, as well as 6-8, but really it's more of the front runner with the K-5. And it's being used in several of our local area districts. So we're going to plan a visit so we can go see that being implemented in classrooms before we move forward with piloting it at Berkeley. So I'm kind of excited to see it in action and see what it looks like in different classrooms before we take a look at implementing it or piloting it in classrooms here. So I'm excited to report that next month we'll be trying it as we see it in action. I also wanted to just kind of give everyone an update. Coming up on October 15th is our annual ISB health compliance dates are approaching for physicals, immunizations, vision, and hearing. So that will be approaching, and all of our schools have been sending out information to the families about those requirements as well. And then we are currently continuing refining our residency process and refining residency investigations and our procedures. And so Nicole Scott is leading that process and working with the team to continue to see what that's going to look like and addressing many of our plans and procedures because of the pandemic, as well as looking at a summer team to help with our assist with our homeless students and ensuring that we are making sure that our students have the right resources and support our families as well. Any questions for me?
Any questions?
Thank you so much.
Good reports, thank you. Ms. Vance. Your time.
The statement of the summary budget, statement of position, and the student activity reports for the period ending August 31, 2021 are provided for your review. Earlier this evening, we had the budget hearing. Information was presented, and now we have the opportunity to adopt the budget for fiscal year 2022. The suggested motion is that the Board of Education adopt a resolution for the adoption of the budget for fiscal year 2022 as presented.
Motion, Mr. Jackson, Ms. Mason. Roll call, please.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa. Hightower.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And at the facilities committee meeting, Jeremy Rowling provided information and explanation regarding the change orders. So at this point, I suggested motion is that the Board of Education approve change order numbers 5 through 9 as presented.
As one package.
Yes.
Roll call, motion, Ms. O'Connell and Ms. Mason. Roll call.
Mason.
Aye.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa.
Aye.
Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And as Mr. Byrne mentioned earlier, we were awarded an ECS grant through E-rate, which will provide the mobile hotspots. So previously, we had another grant through T-Mobile, which that grant expired, but that grant provided internet access during the pandemic and remote learning. So that was very helpful for the district, and we were prepared in advance because Mr. Burke sought out that grant. So this grant came up through E-rate, ECS grant, which provides us the opportunity to provide this again. So the suggested motion is that the Board of Education approve the E-rate vendor contract for hotspots pending attorney review as presented.
Motion, Ms. O'Connell, Mr. Jackson. Roll call, please.
O'Connell.
Aye.
Sosa. Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson.
Aye.
Mason.
Aye.
Motion carried.
And for my monthly report, I wanted to give you an update. I spoke to our rep from Vanguard regarding the purchase of supplemental gas for December, January, February. Said he's monitoring that, and we should have a go ahead to lock in within the next few weeks. He doesn't see a big dip happening. But he still thinks it's beneficial that we lock in to be protected from any increase like we saw last February. So as soon as we have that, we will bring the agreement forward to ratify at the next available board meeting. And I wanted to share, we had an update from Skip, which is our school liability pool. And they've been contacted by several Skip members regarding coverage related to situations related to COVID-19. And they just wanted to reiterate, and they gave us a sample response that we can use. I shared this last year, that there is not coverage for communicable disease or the COVID-19 virus. So they communicated that in the past, but because some member districts are reaching out again, asking about coverage, they just wanted to remind everyone, and they did give us a kind of a boilerplate to use if we had any requests. We have not had any requests at this point for anyone asking about coverage. And then, if you recall the, several years ago, the investment issue where the money invested through IMET, through the Township Treasurer's Office, and the recovery of that, the funds that, from that investment situation. So they recovered their fourth trust distribution. And the district's portion of that distribution, number 4, is $7,103. So the recovery total this time is $76,000, which was distributed amongst all of the member districts. So the original loss was roughly 1.9 million. Total recovered for all member districts was almost 1.1 million, and then there's a portion that was unrecoverable. But this is the fourth and final distribution in regards to the IMET first farmers fraud incident that occurred several years ago. So that is the last couple of recovery distributions. And then there is a maintenance grant that we are seeking just consensus from the board tonight. We received the information and it was too late to include it as an action item. So we are just seeking consensus. The maintenance grant provides a matching grant, and it provides up to $50,000. So working with Mr. Schuster and the Wold Architects, the recommendation is to submit the grant to replace rooftop HVAC units number 8 and 9 at North Lake Middle School. The units have exceeded their useful life and should be replaced. He said the replacement will also enable the change to environmentally preferable refrigerant and improved energy efficiency. So the units are included in the construction for Riley North Lake project, but this would give us an opportunity to supplement the revenue source. The grant is actually due before the October meeting, and this is round one of the FY22 school maintenance project grants. So with board consensus, we would move forward with that, and if that's acceptable, hopefully we'll be able to submit the application with this round one. And if we have to have formal action versus consensus, then we would watch for round two to come out.
Any consensus? Mason, Jackson?
Thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Vince? Ms. Vince, you have anything else?
That is the end of my report unless there are any questions.
Good reports. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Travis.
All right, our current vacancies, we have 8 certified vacancies, and then we have about 8 support staff vacancies. We continue to work on our vacancies. Not only do we post them, but now we're beginning to work with staffing agencies to help us fulfill positions. So have some good relationships with staffing agencies. We're working with and conducting some of our interviews based on those candidates. So hopefully through us posting our vacancies and working with them, we'll be able to fulfill some more of our positions. Any questions about the vacancies?
Are we competitive as far as salaries? I know everybody said we got a selling market for the teachers right now, going where they want. So are we competitive in that middle range maybe?
For starting teachers, we're competitive, but also what some districts are doing, and this is something in the future we do need to talk about. Some people are offering signing bonuses. And so that's something we do need to look at, in the future, especially for hard to fill positions, for example, bilingual teachers, and also special education. Believe it or not, special education teachers are really, hard to find. But one thing that is helping us, we're partnering like with Dominican University. So they have a program where they have like an alternative licensure program. So if you have a bachelor's, you can work on becoming a teacher and still get paid for that with them. But those people have to be hired by a district. And so you work with them for about 3 years, and those teachers become licensed and certified. And so we have gotten some candidates throughout the past. We've had maybe 3, and those teachers have graduated, and some of them stayed with us. But also this year, we were able to work together. And I think we have about 3 teachers who are currently going through the program. But I did talk to the representative from Dominican, and I told her, let's be proactive. And so she said, actually, maybe she can work with us like in May and get some of those teachers working in our summer school. And then they'll be hired, for the fall and work with us. So trying to partner more with universities. But I will say, through the College of Education, just not as many people are going into education. But yes, but a signing bonus, that would help, especially the hard to fill positions in some of our neighboring districts. They have started to do that.
Are you able to get a comparison chart out there of the positions that's hard to find and send it back to us, maybe next board meeting?
Sure.
At least get a chance to look at it.
Sure.
We put these new buildings up, okay? We want to sell what we got going on. And we know the hiring market for teachers right now is really tough.
Yeah.
So if you can put a comparison chart out there so we can look at it, something to do on it.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. And then also, just two other agenda items, Mrs. Zimmerman, Dr. Myzetic and I, we met with some of our new teachers, last week on Thursday. We just wanted to do a check-in, something we started a couple of years ago, how are things going, what are their needs? Great group of teachers, a lot of positive feedbacks that they're feeling valued, they feel, supportive, and right now, didn't have really anything that, they needed from us, but we wanted to let them know that if something came up, they could talk to their principals, mentors, us, but we decided we'll do another check-in with our new teachers, but also, I was thinking, also our support staff, we need to do, one with them as well, so that everybody, feel like we're checking in and know that we're checking in, we just wanna see how things are going. And also that helps with retention and just staying informed if they have any issues or concerns to make sure we're addressing them and making sure we're getting what they need. And then last but not least, on Saturday is National Custodian Day, but we will recognize our custodians on Friday for Custodian Recognition Day. Usually at each school, they'll do something that day to make the custodians feel special. We reach out to them as a district and recognize them. The custodians are an essential piece of our puzzle, just as everyone else is, like you are. And I try to tell them that, and make sure that they understand that without one missing piece of our puzzle, we're not complete. If we did not have custodians, we would not have buildings in the conditions that they are, that they would be clean. I said it would be a disaster. And so what I want to continue to work with them on, and Mr. White, is to also let them know that their voice matters and how they feel matters, because I don't think they really know my role. I had a conversation with one of them, and they really didn't know that, I'm here to hear what they have to say, and that their voices do matter and how they feel. I was sharing, I don't think I really had a voice. I said, what? And I kind of share, you can talk to me anytime. And so they do a lot of work behind the scenes, but they do a lot of work, especially getting schools ready, during the winter, getting setups for programs. So they do a lot, this COVID, situation, they do a lot. And so I really want them to understand that they are appreciated and that they are very essential to the school puzzle, to a district's puzzle, just as everybody is. You remove one piece and we can't function. Whether it's the teacher assistant, it's the custodian, it's you, you're in big trouble. So I just want to do a really good job of kind of meeting with Mr. White, and when he has his next meeting, if I'm available to attend, to kind of work with them and talk to them about it. And how could we let them know, and let them know that their voice, matters, whether it's talking to me, principals, whoever, they matter.
Well, that point is very valuable, and you're exactly right. And we appreciate you too for keeping us all honest. Okay, your department is keep us in check, because things are changing every day.
Yes.
Okay, and we're gonna rely on you to make sure we're doing things right, okay, and fair.
Yes.
Okay, so, and Dan, I know you're gonna keep doing that for us, so thank you guys for everything you're doing.
And if I can add one more thing, I don't know, probably been hearing this about the governor's executive order. I do want to say that our staff, with compliance with either sending me their vaccination card or them getting testing and having to provide that proof to me, has been going well.
Great.
And they've been, very kind, very, communicating with me, but I try to make it as easy as possible. I really, really want to thank Mr. Byrne. He created this document, and it makes it a piece of cake. They can just put in their name, put in their information, upload their things, and it's there. One look at it, and I can tell who submitted it, who didn't, and it helps out. And so I really want to thank Mr. Byrne for being proactive, for having a vision to say, okay, I think you'll need this, this, and this. And he's like, when it came up, he's like, Ms. Travis, I have something for you, take a look at it. And at first I was like, oh, okay, but work
And he said, encourage people to use it. And I've been encouraging everybody to use it. And, you know, it's wonderful. It's working really well. But the cooperation from the people in the district is very much so appreciated. And so I just want to say it is working well.
Great. I think as a board, we want to hear that, right?
Correct.
Okay, so we're a great team. We're not a good team, we're a great team. So let's build on that, all right? Anything else, Ms. Travis?
No, that's the end of my report, unless you have questions.
Well, we can honestly say you've been busy, so keep being busy,
Yes,
all right?
absolutely. I don't think I have a problem with that.
Okay. Other new business, we have none. Announcements. October 12th, we have a special board meeting at 6:30. Mark your calendars, 6:30. Alex, 6:30.
Yes, sir.
And the next board meeting will be October 25th, regular board meeting, 7 o'clock. Okay, we have anything else? A motion to adjourn? Motion. Ms. O'Connell, Ms. Mason, roll call please.
O'Connell. Sosa. Hightower.
Aye.
Jackson. Mason. Motion carried.
Thanks, everybody. All right.
Every day.